Okay, so let's get right into it. We're looking at a pretty startling incident that took place in the English Channel, one that some commentators are calling a flat-out national humiliation for Britain, raising some really serious questions about the state of the country's defenses.
And that quote right there, that's really at the heart of this whole thing. It's this idea that what happened was so audacious it's almost funny. But when you think about what it implies, well, that's when it gets frightening. So what exactly went down? All right, so the story revolves around a Russian oil tanker. Now, this isn't just any tanker. It's a sanctioned ship, part of that so-called shadow fleet, and it sailed right through the English Channel. But it's not just that it sailed through, it's how it did it that sparked this absolute firestorm. And this is where you see this huge gap between rhetoric and reality. On one side, you had the UK government talking tough, putting out warnings that this shadow fleet was going to be interdicted. But on the other side, Russia didn't just send the tanker, they sent it with its own personal bodyguard, a full-on Russian frigate, parading it right through one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. Now, according to the commentators we're looking at, this wasn't just about getting a ship from point A to point B. Oh no, they see this as a deliberate, calculated move, a bit of political theater, if you will. Essentially, Vladimir Putin sending a very clear, very aggressive message, challenging the UK's authority right on its own doorstep. So you've got a Russian warship escorting a sanctioned tanker through the channel. The next logical question is, what did the UK do about it? How did the government respond? Well, this is where the story, according to these reports, takes a pretty stunning turn.
The reaction has been absolutely nothing. I mean, just let that sink in. That's a quote from Patrick Christie, the journalist who's been on this story. He's saying there was no official statement, no press release, not even a no comment, just silence. And for many commentators, that lack of response was just as loud as the provocation itself.
And get this, the government wasn't even the one to break the story. It wasn't some official Ministry of Defense briefing. Nope. It was journalists from the Daily Telegraph who apparently tracked the warship, found it in the channel, and got the video footage themselves. They broke the news. So this single event, this one incident, is really just the tip of the iceberg. The commentators claim that Russia felt confident enough to pull this stunt for one big reason. They believe Britain's famous naval power just isn't what it used to be. They argue this whole episode is a symptom of a much, much deeper problem.
And here is the number that just stops you cold. According to Patrick Christie's reporting, at that specific time, the Royal Navy, the same Navy that once ruled the waves, had precisely one single destroyer that was fully operational and ready to go. Just one.
But it's not even just about the number. The reports get into some pretty alarming details. That one working destroyer, it was apparently seen with scaffolding on it and without missiles during a recent crisis. Another story claims it took a full month for a different warship to get to a UK base after being attacked. And to top it all off, commentators point to this moment where the UK's own defense secretary apparently couldn't even say how many ships the Navy actually has. And that brings us to this quote, which really just sums up the whole sentiment, doesn't it? It takes that iconic, powerful phrase about Britain's history and basically says, yeah, that's not us anymore. So, okay, how on earth did things get to this point? I mean, this kind of thing doesn't just happen overnight, right? These commentators argue it's the result of a long, slow decline with a few very specific causes. Just look at this historical arc for a second. You go from the legendary victory at Trafalgar to having one of the biggest, most powerful navies on the planet during World War II to today. And what's happening today? Commentators are pointing to what they're calling the ultimate humiliation. The Royal Navy allegedly needing to borrow a warship from Germany just to take part in a NATO exercise.
So why the shift? Well, the report zeroes in on three main things. First, systematic cuts to defense funding over time. Second, a major problem with military recruitment across the board. And third, specific controversial policies, like one in the Royal Air Force that was actually found to have unlawfully discriminated against certain applicants, which they argue has only made the personnel shortage worse. All right, let's pull all these threads together. What does this single event, this one tanker, this one frigate, what does it really tell us about the bigger picture of UK national security, at least through the eyes of these critics?
The crucial argument here, the one these commentators keep hammering home, is that what Russia did wasn't just random. They believe Russia sailed that frigate through the channel because they knew. They were aware of the UK's naval situation and felt they could act without any real consequences. In their view, weakness doesn't just go unnoticed, it invites this kind of aggression.
And that really leaves us all with this final, pretty heavy question. The case being made by these commentators isn't really just about ships or budgets. It's about perception. It's about history, and it's about the message a nation projects to the rest of the world. It forces us to ask, what happens when the very symbols a country built its power on start to look like they're fading away?